Welcome to Eviliv3, a celebration of my favorite tabletop role-playing games. This is a sister channel to Eviliv3. Subscribe if you're new to the channel because today we're diving deep into TTRPG news with this episode covering Dungeons & Dragons 5.5 edition updates on D&D Beyond. Discord's fall would suck for everyone playing TTRPGs. Dungeons & Dragons Online Retrospective and in-depth TTRPG discussion. All right. I would like to take a moment and thank the Patreon patrons and invite you to consider becoming a patron. You can even grab tabletop role-playing games and get $10 by signing up to start playing games using my affiliate links in the description below. Let's get into it, shall we? Dungeons & Dragons Beyond rolls out 5.5e updates for 40 classes. I want to say quickly, do people call it 5.5e? I've been calling it D&D 2024. Because remember, it was supposed to be D&D 1 at one point. But it's really just 5th edition with like some rules stripped away and some rules adjusted. So is it 5.5? Like we've been doing like 3.5 when that came out and 2.5 when they got crazy and 1.5 with Unearthed Arcana. Let me know. Let me know what you think. All right. So it says here D&D Beyond rolls out 5.5e updates for 40 subclasses. So Dungeons & Dragons rolled out a massive update for 40 different third-party subclasses, fixing it so that they can be played with 5.5 edition classes. D&D rolled out a massive update yesterday, bringing more than 40... They've been like saying this 3 times in a row now. Though, don't get too excited. This is a software update owing to the way that D&D Beyond is set up and being rebuilt, and the fact that there are 2 editions of Dungeons & Dragons simultaneously between 5th edition and 5.5 edition. To be clear, there are no mechanical updates which have been made to any of the subclass rules. They've just updated them to work with the 5.5e core classes. So D&D Beyond updates third-party subclasses, and to be fair, it's a huge update. Even having the option to pick the old subclasses on a 5.5 character is sure to be huge for folks looking to use D&D Beyond to keep track of their character. This means that now, 2 years after the release of the Player's Handbook, the dream of backwards compatibility is nearing completion. If you want to make 5.5e Echo Knight Fighter, previously, you would have had to homebrew it on D&D Beyond, which is a clunky endeavor if you've ever had to do it. It's not impossible, not even difficult, just clunky, tedious, and awkward. But now, you can make a 5.5e fighter and just pick the Echo Knight subclass, for instance. The same goes for subclasses from the Book of Ebon Tides and Grimhollow Player's Pack, even the Humblewood campaign setting, just to name a few. It is a huge quality of life update, even if it doesn't mechanically change the subclass. Though in the case of the Echo Knight fighter, I'm sure that's fine. It's one of the most popular fighter subclasses for a reason. Here's a look at the announcement from D&D Beyond. Quote, one of our more exciting updates, almost all the remaining 2014 partner subclasses can now be played using the 2024 classes. A massive thanks to our partners who worked with us to get this available to everyone. These updates are already available to use within the character builder. You will not need to repurchase anything to access these subclasses. If you were hoping that one of your favorite subclasses might have gotten an overhaul, don't worry, that might still be in the cards. After all, we've seen some changes made in third-party releases, and updating from 5e to 5.5e feels like a good excuse to retinker with the balance of subclasses. So let's check out the changelog really quick. Might as well. And you can see all the different classes that were updated, or subclasses that were updated here, which is pretty significant. There's a bunch of them. And I got to be honest, I do use D&D Beyond. I only use it for my 5.5 game. I'm only running one 5th edition game right now. I've got 3 different games running right now. And I hate D&D Beyond. And to be fair, it's not really D&D Beyond that I hate. It's 5th edition, 5.55 D&D 2024 that I hate. I just think it's completely broken as a game system. and players exploit and do their best to try to work around DM rulings, and it's arguably the worst of the worst, in my opinion. Much worse than 2nd edition ever was or 3rd edition ever was. And that's saying a lot. So, in any case, I tend to weed out those types of players, but it's still annoying. You know, it's still frustrating. And the whole game system itself as built is just, it seems, for whiny players who don't ever want to have to face consequences and can do anything they want at any point they want. Not really for me. But again, I could just be an old man on a porch yelling, "Get off my lawn." I recognize that clearly. Hey, Corey, how you doing? Have I ever checked out the DM Guild's website? DM Guilds? I don't think so. What's DM Guilds? Let's find out. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I didn't realize that's what you're talking about. All right, so the next, I mean, just really quickly to talk about D&D Beyond. You can fix a lot of the problems that are inherent in D&D 5.5 or D&D 2024 or 1 D&D, whatever you want to call it, simply by homebrewing or just having your own rules that you use at your own table, which is fine unless you're using D&D Beyond, in which case they're all falling back on the mechanics that are inherent to the character sheet. And look, let's be honest, using tools like D&D Beyond is a shortcut to thinking. You don't have to do math. You don't have to understand how the game mechanics work. You just click a button and try to do something. If I could tell you how many times I have to say, tell me exactly the wording of that spell or ability, and then they have to look it up because they're like, I'm not sure, I don't know, and they have to fumble around for it. Like it's on your character, it's right there. If you should at least know your character and your character's abilities, because if I make a callback like, "Are you sure? Why do you get to do that?" and it takes you like a 10 count to find the ruling, then you don't know your character. And there's nothing worse than somebody, "Hey, can I do that?" No, because you're not near them, so you can't do that. And if you would have read your actual ability, you would know that. So why am I, as the DM who has to run the entire game, has to know all the damn rulings? Why do I have to know your character better than you know them? That's my big complaint about D&D Beyond, is it strips away the necessity for players to know anything at all. And all they do is just guess and hope the DM doesn't double check them on it. Drives me nuts. I totally agree with you there, Corey. Old school books, paper and pencils, is really the best way to go. But that is a problem in today's society. I mean, not everyone lives in a place where you can run a game around a table. So if we do have to use VTTs, at least know your damn character. That's all I ask. Just know your character. So if I call you on it, you can quickly pop off a ruling, and then we can just move along. There's nothing worse than finding out that a player's misunderstood their own powers and that I have to correct them in the middle of the game. All right, so that's my big complaints. The next story here, Discord's fall would suck for TTRPGs. Were Discord to fall apart, there's no clear replacement for it in the tabletop RPG community, and its loss could be devastating. Given how often I've had to pick up shop and move to another social media site, you'd think I'd be used to online spaces sunsetting or changing so completely that they're unrecognizable. But here I am, anxiously waiting to see how Discord's upcoming worldwide implementation of age verification might affect the platform and whether or not that means having to move again. It's entirely possible that nothing changes. But even if it doesn't, the loss, or at least the splintering of Discord, would be terrible, as it's the primary means by which I and so many others in the tabletop space stay glued to one another. If anything, the situation has been a stark reminder that you shouldn't be entirely relying on Discord for your main hobby. If you haven't been keeping up with it, Discord's decision to roll out new age verification policies worldwide was not well received. Discord's attempted to downplay concerns, but a disclaimer on the FAQ about Discord's age verification policies pointed to the app testing a relationship with Persona. That disclaimer was quickly and quietly deleted, though an archived version still exists. Persona's shady associations with ICE and other deportation efforts in the United States further raises people's eyebrows. In a statement to Kotaku, Discord said that its work with Persona was part of a limited test that is no longer happening. But for some users, even a brief association with Persona was enough for them to start looking elsewhere. Discord's delay of its age verification policy, detailed in a blog post on February 24th, doesn't seem to have slowed down people wanting to find a Discord alternative. But there's nowhere to go. From what I've seen on the tabletop role-playing game servers that I'm a part of, there are two main corners. The first is that, concerns, I should say. The first is that Discord's new policy, despite the company's assurances, will create risks for users within the TTRPG space, as a not insignificant number of those users have a marginalized identity or are privacy conscious and could be put into danger if their data was leaked. Even the most secure systems can fail eventually, after all. The other concern is that Discord's implementing mandatory age verification in any form would drive some users from the platform entirely, either from discomfort with the policy or from solidarity with friends or peers who don't like the policy, which could splinter existing communities. As users have been canceling their Nitro subscriptions or asking around for Discord alternatives, it's highlighted a key flaw. As much as Discord has brought some of the furthest corners of the TTRPG community together, especially when COVID-19 moved so much of the hobby to virtual spaces, that total reliance means that if Discord were to ever go away or be deemed too terrible to use, there isn't an obvious backup choice for people to flock to. So whether it happens this year or even further down the line, Discord's recent IPO increases the likelihood that the platform will face in shitification. Discord falling apart and fracturing would be devastating for the tabletop role-playing game community. Discord is typically the go-to option for the virtual adventures played by casual hobbyists, the communal spaces that third-party creators and professional writers use to interact with fans, the watch party spaces for certain actual plays, and the hubs by which professional game masters both track and run their games that make up their business. If lots of folks leave Discord and spread out to different apps, it's going to be really hard to find each other and reconnect. It wouldn't be all dissimilar to how when Twitter fell apart, splintering so many once unified hubs of information, community, and conversation across Blue Sky, Threads, and Mastodon. To my understanding, Discord is nearly universal for all the D&D groups and communities that I'm familiar with, TTRPG creator, panelist, and performer Diana Fay told me. I don't think I know of a single alternative that people use consistently for their groups, except for maybe one that was used Mighty Networks in the past. But yes, all my D&D groups use Discord, and I have a Discord for my community that I use for basically everything that's not microblogging. While they're not great for casual conversation or remaining glued into a community, they are some well-known alternatives to playing TTRPGs virtually. Virtual Tabletop Roll20 has its own built-in browser-based support for camera and microphone, and so by extension, Demiplane does as well following the two of them merging. The same is true for Virtual Tabletop Alchemy RPG, which focuses on using pretty maps and music to make a more cinematic but more expensive experience for tabletop role-playing games. If you have to make accounts on Roll20 or Alchemy RPG to use them, however, is that hard? No, but convincing someone to adopt a new app is a battle in itself, and so many have admitted it's just easier to use Discord. Roll20 added Discord integration back in 2024, for example, and D&D has an official Discord bot, Avre, that makes it easier to play the game through Discord. Discord is clearly where the audience is, and it's an important consideration to several TTRPG businesses. I was not aware of Roll20 adding Discord integration. I'm going to have to check that out, because that's new to me. And this was done in 2024. Wow. Yeah, I had no idea. I'm going to have to check that out. All right. What's next? Mage Hand Press Editor-in-Chief Mike Hollick concurred with the sentiment of Discord's importance to his business. Mage Hand Press creates a huge assortment of third-party player-facing content for D&D, like spells, character species, and classes and subclasses. The publisher has had a few releases on D&D's official virtual portal, D&D Beyond, which with lots of players use alongside Discord to play the game online, and anecdotally, I've played a few tables that use classes created by Mage Hand Press, and they make good stuff. We use Discord really heavily, Hollick told me. We use Discord for playtesting, so it's our earliest chance to show off content before it goes out to a wider audience. So it gives us early readers and feedback, and it allows us to refine our work. We use it for marketing. We have a Kickstarter running right now, and one of the cool things about Kickstarter is that you can track where all the sources of traffic are coming from. And a lot of those are just folks who are very invested on Discord. Our most hardcore people are clicking the link on Discord because that's where they see it first. Mage Hand Press isn't the only one to use Discord as a means of gathering feedback on future products either. All of our playtest feedback from our digital magazine, the broadsheets, as well as specific Adept PDFs or other products our Patreon patrons get access to, is organized through Discord's forums and thread features. Writer and director, Dottie told me. Alongside his girlfriend AB, Dottie runs the YouTube channel Mystic Arts, which pulls from Dottie's decades of experience gaming D&D campaigns to offer incredible advice for game masters looking to up their game's settings and characters and stories. We use Discord to adjust the products after publication to feedback received. So I'd say, as of right now, Discord is integral to the way we communicate with our fans and with our team of creatives. A part of the tabletop community. Gaining access to Mystic Arts' exclusive Discord requires paying for a membership to the Mystic Arts Patreon. Getting access to a private Discord is a common perk for TTRPG creators. TTRPG YouTubers Jenny D, XP to Level 3, D&D Shorts, Bob Worldbuilder, and Dungeon Dudes, TTRPG map makers Kapeku, Stained Carbon Maps, Domil's Wondrous Works and Forgotten Adventures, and actual plays show Tabletop Notch, Venture Forth, Transplanar RPG, and Natural 6, among so many others, all have private Discord servers that can usually be joined by purchasing at the least their lowest tier in their respective Patreons. It's a way of both showing your favorite character some additional appreciation, while also finding a space online filled with people who also enjoy that particular creator. Not every creator does this. Some creators in the TTRPG space don't publicly advertise private Discord servers that fans can join at all. Pointy Hat, Dingo Doodles, Vibe Check D&D, and Willowares are a few examples. Others like Mage Hand Press and Faye have free to join Discord servers. That's also the case for Ghostfire Gaming, a major third-party publisher in the D&D space, best known for Grim Hollow, a fantastic and delightfully dreadful grimdark horror setting that my friends are all too chicken to play with me. While I wouldn't necessarily categorize our Discord community as the hardcore fans, I do think having a Discord server provides an opportunity for the most engaged fans. All right, so it just goes on to sell its point. So I only use Discord because Skype died. They ended it. And I was looking for a way of isolating players' video feeds so that I could put them together in my program I use to stream online. Because I bought a program years ago that I could use forever to stream online with, and I'm not going to pay a monthly subscription to do that. And so using it for free is just a total logical thing for me. I would never pay for like a StreamYard service or something like that. That's ridiculous in my opinion, when I already have a program that works infinitely better, is infinitely more customizable, and it all comes down to however I want to portray what I see on screen to stream out to everyone else. The downside is that there are no free streaming services that allow you to capture feeds directly from other people in an easy way. So you have to use something like Discord where you capture an area on your screen and then import that screen capture section into your feed. But then if someone turns off their video monitor, it changes everything around and screws up the entire look. So it's entirely frustrating even using Discord, but at least it's the free alternative. If I could find something that was infinitely easier, I would definitely use that. But at this point, I'm sort of stuck with Discord. And when this all started happening, they were talking about, first of all, I don't personally care if you're going to run verification. I think people should always, in every space online, have verified accounts because that eliminates spam and bots instantly. It's all verified. You know you're talking to an actual human and they can be held accountable for their actions. I think that is only reasonable. I understand why people don't want that. And so I understand why people flee from stuff like that, even though I don't mind at all. And so I was looking for alternatives to Discord, but there was nothing that I found that you didn't have to pay for on a regular basis that you could then stream video from. And that is the only reason, it's the only feature that I desperately need. So therein lies the problem. When you're running 4 or 5 hour streams, you cannot be paying for a monthly fee, especially if you're not making any money from it. Like, why would I pay to play a game that's supposed to be a free game just for fun? That's ridiculous. If it's a paid game, well, that's something else entirely. But yeah, free games, that's ridiculous. So I get it. And I get that Discord's fall would be terrible. But it does beg the question, why are there no Discord clones? Why is there no one out there that is going to put together a version of a Discord-like product that people could sign up for and use for free, and then say, look, we're never going to do verification. Come over to us. We live in a capitalist world, which means competition is important for innovation. Without competition, you have stagnation, and then you have a monopoly, and you can charge whatever you want, you can have whatever rules you want, and no one can say anything about it. But the second there's competition, then you're vying against each other for people's attention. I don't understand why there's not a Discord killing, product out there. I mean, back in the day with social media, it was MySpace and that was all the rage. And then Facebook became free to the public and not invite only. And it took over the social media site scene. Now we're seeing, of course, TikTok is doing the same thing of stealing all the attention and all the air out of the room. But I'm too old to get on that shit. So I refuse to deal with anything like that. I'll just stick with YouTube and Discord, and I can do what I want to do online, and I'm okay. So that's kind of where I'm sitting with this is, yes, it is terrible, and yes, if Discord dies or people abandon it and they don't want to come to Discord in order to, for me to stream games, well, then I'm just not going to be able to stream games. That's really what it comes down to. Because I'm not going to use, like Roll20, for example, their video and audio streaming sucks. I've actually tried to use it just with my family. My son is overseas. And so we do like family game nights at my house. And we have to do it online so that we can have video streams and have audio. And just with the 4 people, 3 of which are in my house, it is impossible to have a seamless audio video experience on Roll20. So why the hell would I do a live stream directly from there? It's ridiculous. And the videos are super tiny, like 100 by 150 pixels. So I couldn't have it on a screen at 1080p, because most people watch my streams on their TVs. So I couldn't, it would be super pixelated, it would look like shit, and then they wouldn't want to tune in because it looks terrible. So it does become one of those issues of quality that you have to deal with if you are a streamer. And there's just no other clear-cut solution for me. If you know of anything, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear about it. But what do you think about Discord? Is it something that you use exclusively for tabletop role-playing? I would love to hear about your setups that you guys have used in the past or you do use right now, because it might be something I would like to adopt. The way I do it is very much using Discord for communication when we're not playing. I use a virtual tabletop for the game, and then we all just sort of see each other in Discord video channel. So that's how I use it. but there might be a better way that I'm open to. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I appreciate it. All right, next up. Hey, Chris, how you doing? You still miss Skype? You have a Pavlovian response to the old Skype bouncing ball music. Yeah, do. Good memories of the reviews and games with me. Yeah, we did a lot of Superman stuff. A lot of good times. All right. I used to play Dungeons & Dragons Online when it first came out. Of course, it came out in 3.5 edition of D&D back in the day, 20 years ago. So I didn't even realize it was still going. But here we are. Exclusive Dungeons & Dragons Online Retrospective, looking back on 20 years of DDO. Dungeons & Dragons Online in many ways stood the test of time, weathering a troubled launch, an uncertain monetization switch, and so much more. Released in 2006 and celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, MMO has survived in an industry and genre where many games aren't given the chance to prove their quality over the long term or come back from troubled and subpar launches. Yet, Dungeons & Dragons Online has overcome its initial challenges and in many ways represents one of the most unique ways you can play the iconic tabletop RPG online. It's an MMO that differs greatly from Standing Stone Games' other massive multiplayer game. The Lord of the Rings Online, which I played for years and years and years. Lotro is a game with wide open spaces, large maps, and a massively open world to explore, while DDO is more confined, full of high-instance dungeons to crawl and iconic D&D campaign locations to experience. It's an MMO that leans heavily on its popular IP, yet it was also a D&D game that launched with just with just dungeons and no dragons. We knew what was going to happen, and we knew we had to fix it fast, senior systems designer Brent Walton told me during an interview last week. Walton says that the team was already hard at work on its first module, Vault of Nights, which brought Vela into the famous dungeonless Dungeons & Dragons game, something immortalized in 2006 Penny Arcade comic titled DNDA. Starting in QA back in 2005, Walton moved quickly from QA to design, thanks in large part to the team's need to have Brent fix the bugs he was identifying. Dungeons & Dragons Online started development before World of Warcraft launched, and the game the team was developing looked a fair bit different than what was launched, according to Walton. I came in at a turbulent time when DDO was kind of shifting directions, Walton explained. It had been originally designed as a much more gauntlet-instanced environment, even more instanced than it is, like 4 adventurers go into a dungeon. There was less of a concept of an MMO. Pure action game, senior content designer Charles Miles put in, which Walton agreed with, he continued. Because World of Warcraft had come out and made such an impact in the industry, there was a lot of, can we make it more like an MMO? And can we make it have more of a world? That process was happening. There was a lot of back and forth in the gameplay. The combat model was in translation. I was joining QA where I posted enough bugs that they had to hire me as a designer to fix, which is kind of how I got my job. Translating Dungeons & Dragons' famous pen and paper style gameplay and rule set has always been difficult, and many games of the period had their own spin on how they are iterated. CRPGs like Baldur's Gate and its sequels adapted the advanced 2.5e rule set, running dice rolls and such in real time during combat, while Neverwinter Nights spearheaded the D&D setting as prime real estate for MMO worlds back during AOL's heyday in the 90s. Dungeons & Dragons Online is built on the Tabletop Games Advanced 3.5 edition, which means if you've only recently gotten into D&D thanks to its relevance in the current cultural zeitgeist, there might be a smidge of a learning curve. Translating the rule set and the feelings of a pen and paper RPG experience to an MMO also brought its own learning curve for the developers, though. There was so much of a push to make it so much like the pen and paper RPG as possible, even though some things didn't exactly jive. Walton explained. Mechanics such as curse would persist through death, only dispelling if someone cast remove curse on the afflicted player. You'd have players sitting in a tavern begging for remove curse, Walton told me with a chuckle. Miles added that the worst was blind, where players would be stuck with a completely black screen until they found a cleric who would cure them. That's brutal. There was a little bit of a hilarity in terms of book rules being applied to the MMO space, Walton said. Senior designer Amanda Groh who had been with the team since '07, added that the team learned that some rules in D&D work really well on paper, but didn't necessarily translate well into real-time MMO gameplay. You would have some of the really early designs where you do a fight and it would be like boom and it's done, Grow explained. She continued, because it's actually 6 seconds per turn, and when you play that out in real time, it's not a very satisfying experience. Then they have to go, how do we deal with hit point tracking? Spell slots became the same kind of problem, where it's great in slow real-time game, but when you're trying to do something real-time and action-based that you can't pause, it becomes a very, very different experience. What early players would learn is that the spirit of Dungeons & Dragons was clearly there in the online MMO, but the team was still very much feeling their way through how to make DDO into a viable MMO that felt like D&D. If the first launch feels defined by learning experiences, the second launch, as the team referred to, the free-to-play transition through our interview, feels defined by the results of those lessons. Nowadays, free-to-play MMOs are a dime a dozen. We see them nearly everywhere, from mobile games to large MMOs made by legacy studios. Yet while they were nearly always been popular in other markets, free-to-play games here in the West weren't necessarily seen as a viable monetization option. It was largely Dungeons & Dragons Online that proved the business model could be a success. I remember thinking at the time that DDO was beta testing this monetization model for Lotro, which swiftly followed suit after the success of Dungeons & Dragons Online Eberron Unlimited, which shifted the title from Dungeons & Dragons Online Stormreach before it. This wasn't a guaranteed success, especially in an industry and genre where you very rarely got second chances to pull off success. Yet, as Amanda tells me, DDO's monetization shift saw it rise to some pretty tall heights. The second launch was cool because you could just see going up and up and up, and it just kept going. At one point, we were the most played game behind World of Warcraft in terms of MMOs, and it was just really cool to see that transition because so often in our industry, at least back in those days, the impression was if it didn't hit right out the door, you are dead, you are done. DDO's free-to-play shift didn't just make everything free, hoping that would entice players to try out the MMO, but rather the launch brought a full new raid, a new class, and so much more. The team was determined to bring improvements from the original release that would make meaningful impacts on players, from monster scaling to the henchman system. By the way, the team says you should give Byron's scout sword a whirl when you play through Korthos. He'll open doors for you, Brent said. All right. So clearly they believe that it has really improved. You've got 77 major updates, 78 literally hitting servers today. Narrative acts as a game master, adding atmosphere and in many respects informing that would normally only be present when you're sitting around a table with the DM across from you. And yeah, I don't know. Have you guys played Dungeons & Dragons Online? I have not returned to it since the free-to-play switchover, and to be fair, even when I played it originally and then with the free-to-play version, I didn't really enjoy it. It was very clunky, but if I'm going to be playing an MMO, like I cut my teeth when EverQuest first came out. I was stationed over in Germany with my wife, and that was our way of communicating with friends and stuff back home and just getting out of Germany, for a little while. And so we played the hell out of EverQuest for years. And when World of Warcraft came out, I just didn't like the cartoony graphics, and so I wasn't really interested in switching over to it. But EverQuest 2 came out at the same time, and so we played years of EverQuest 2. And then Lord of the Rings Online came out, and so we played years of Lord of the Rings Online. And we tried Dungeons & Dragons Online, but it just wasn't very fun to me. I played Neverwinter Nights and played through that game and really enjoyed it. But it wasn't quite the online experience that I was so used to as an MMO. And if I'm going to be playing a TTRPG, then I want to play a TTRPG. I don't want to play an MMO/TTRPG because they're different beasts with different needs. Just as they were saying earlier that it's hard to translate that 6-second attack round into an online experience and have it feel exciting and like worthwhile. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't be trying to do that. That's not what the online space is about. You have your virtual tabletops if you want to play Dungeons & Dragons Online. You should not be going to an MMORPG to try a TTRPG experience because you're not going to get it. It's a completely different beast. And for people who love DDO, that's awesome. But you have to understand you're not playing a TTRPG. If you think you are, then you fundamentally don't know what a TTRPG is. Played Warcraft also. You've been playing Warframe for 9 years and Neverwinter. I mean, it's 20 years for the 77 updates. So I don't think that's terrible, That's a long time. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never really gotten into DDO. I have zero interest in playing it. Every once in a while, I'll reinstall EverQuest or I'll reinstall Lord of the Rings Online and play for like an hour and a half and remember why I don't play it anymore. And then just move on with my life. And that's really how it's been. Like, I only got back into playing TTRPGs by starting my DL Saga YouTube channel. And it's, today is the 5-year anniversary of that YouTube channel. So I just don't see a real draw to go back to MMOs after I've sort of re-dipped my toe into TTRPGs, especially with the ability to play online in TTRPGs. And there's so many different ways that you can play and styles of game and campaign settings and rule sets and everything that I just can't ever imagine an MMO living up to that communal experience playing a tabletop role-playing game. And I've never been able to have it meet it and make me feel as engaged and fulfilled like TTRPGs have. So for me, it just doesn't work very well. Never played an MMORPG, but you've always liked the idea of communal playing like the Leroy Jenkins people. Yeah. That was a hell of a meme back in the day. All right, so I'm not going to clearly go through the rest of this article because it's really big, but for those of you who love DDO or play it from time to time, what is the draw? Do you feel like it's a TTRPG? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you say. Let's check out this last article here before we dive in. Don't Fear the Reaper, Handling Mortality with In Death, TTRPG. Today I'm covering In Death, a role-playing game about the afterlife written and designed by J.D. Trotter. In Death is a trad game like D&D and Pathfinder. However, it stems from works by Chaosium, specifically Call of Cthulhu, and the basic role-playing universal game engine. If you've played Call of Cthulhu, you know how parts of the game work. I say this as this game is like a bridge between story games and trad games in a way. In Death directly encourages GMs and players to put story over optimized characters in the game, but you're all here for a review, so let's dive in. You have died, no helping it. That is how In Death begins. At the end of a life, a new one can start, but you are not wholly you in some cases. You, in death, have become a shade, a spirit in the world of shadows, the dusk, between the living and those in the true afterworlds. Depending on how you died, your wound either faintly glows in your skin or you glow internally from an illness. You're cold with skin like dry clay. You're translucent, others around you as almost as opaque as the living, some almost completely transparent. You have a reason to stay in the dusk. You have unfinished business to attend to somewhere in the world of the living or in the land you currently reside in now. You must be careful, as when you're hurt enough, you can't die again. You just cease to exist. You face oblivion. You can speak to others in your mother tongue, and they understand. Those from times long past that would have never heard your language in life speak words back to you, but you know they aren't speaking yours. All languages are one language in the dusk. All gods are real. Most are distant and prefer their own realms in which the dusk cannot interact with. But the gods of death, the dead, and the underworld, they're closer to you, and maybe, just maybe, you can earn your way to a peaceful afterlife. Mechanics and narrative. The key part of narrative in this game rides of characters that are different to one another but share a couple of key things. Shared accident that ended their mortal lives, unfinished business with the same person, or are fighting their way to the same afterlife. Those can unite what would otherwise be a very strange group of shades. There's also character creation questions throughout the game book itself, which outline how to make a character that fits the world that is still unique. There are also defining traits in the game, which Trotter writes each player character in Death is given a defining trait. This is one significant aspect of themselves that underpins their entire personality and guides their decisions. This trait should be indicative not of how they were in life, but how the player thinks they will be in their afterlife. Consider carefully the type of character you want to play, the decisions they might make, and their motivations in the afterlife. Which then goes to say that you can and probably should choose something suboptimal for your character to have, and that it creates a much more interesting story. Side note, if they made Knucklebones D6s as D10s and D%, I'd use them for this game. One of the first ways of how In-Death differs from most trad games is the usage of the D10 and D% die. Each characteristic and skill has a measure of 0 to 100 on your character sheet. If one of your skills has 50 in it, you're aiming to meet or get under 50. The D% die gives you the 10s place, while the D10 gives you the 1s place. You roll, and if you get 45, 40 on the D% and 5 on the D10, you complete your actions as you sought to. There are exceptions where your base score may not be enough, such as when under emotional duress, you have to aim for lower scores to succeed in an action you undertake. There's more working parts to this type of game, but that's something that I want to leave up to readers to explore. It can be quite crunchy, and sometimes folks may bounce off the crunch, but maybe you stay out in the roleplay and learn to love some number crunch. Or perhaps you'll love the crunch and aren't as great at roleplay as you like, but the numbers game keeps you locked into what you like, and learn a trick or two about portraying a character that's similar or different than you. In any case, there's something to be learned. I am not a fan of the Call of Cthulhu game system that I guess is like rolled over to the basic role-playing game system. The fact that they use half percentages and quarter percentages and the D100 in order to determine your skills and stuff. It's just, and having this massive list of skills, I just don't enjoy it. It's just not for me. Like, I like Call of Cthulhu because of the style of gameplay, the investigative, otherworldly type, stuff. And I'm a big fan of the 1920s, 1940s eras. And Lovecraft, I love to death. But the game system behind it, I think blows. So if this is using that same system, I won't try it. Hauntings in the Corner of Memory. On a more personal note, In Death as a TTRPG reminds me a bit of a Scientology of death and dying course I took at Kent State University. Dr. Josh Pollock, my professor, was kind and open to conversations the 20-year-olds were having about dying. Many of us had faced at least one near-death experience as children, and some of us, me and another girl, faced more into adulthood. My mom nearly died from her gallbladder several years before in 2019, and I too had my gallbladder go out the summer of 2022 before the course in fall of 2023. I learned the 5 stages of grief were not for grief, but for dying. Doctors used to not tell terminally ill patients they were going to die until they were actively dying. They would tell family and friends were sworn to secrecy. Then one day, a doctor decided to tell patients they were dying before they were actually doing so. Those 5 stages of dying, bargaining, denial, depression, anger, and acceptance, would affect me by May when my partner and good friend Ashan passed. It was sudden. I blacked out for several months, living in twilight while nothing was quite real. I came out of it dazed and unable to eat certain foods, likely from eating only those during my blackout. But today, I'm alive. I always miss him, occasionally worse some moments, and mourn what could have been. With all this said, I see In Death as not only something bridging the gap between story and trad games, I believe In Death to be a game as a medium, pun intended, between the living, the dying, and the mourning the dead. A game to start a conversation that is taboo, that no one really likes to talk about. It may be able to help folks come to terms with the end of life with a fictional after. I can even see this being used by Dr. Pollock in his own conducting of another death and dying course. While I have not run or played In Death quite yet, I do hope to soon and update my review of it once I do. In the meantime, enjoy your stay in the world of the living. All right. Weird you're doing a review of a game you've never played. Right? That seems odd. But what are you going to do? Yeah, any game that has tons of skills is a game that tells you what you can and cannot do. And I don't like that idea in tabletop role playing. I think you should be able to try anything. You may fail at it, but you shouldn't have your character sheet literally saying you can do this, you cannot do this. That is limiting when it comes to imagination. And that is why I didn't really like the non-weapon proficiency system in 2nd edition D&D, 3rd edition D&D, 4th edition D&D, 5th edition D&D. I just don't think you need those skills listed at all. You should have your ability stats and your player's imagination guide the story, not a character sheet. And in any case, I think the idea of this is great. The game system, not a fan of. And I don't know. I could see using this in a different game system and having a lot of fun doing it. Or just coming up with your own, you know. I'm still refining my DL6 system because it's not quite working the way I want it to. And so I have to keep massaging it and adjusting it. But it also is on the back burner for other projects. All right, so that is it for this episode of Eviliv News. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. And for those of you who tuned in live, hey, thanks. I appreciate you. Subscribe and ring the bell if you're new to the channel. Don't forget to click the like button and comment to let others learn about this celebration of tabletop role-playing games. Thank you to creator patron Aaron Hardy and developer patrons Chris Androu and Sam Ruiz. And as always, remember the evil spelled backwards is live. So get out there and be evil.